And we're back and we're live. Happy Thursday, everyone. We're back with graphic design and holistic branding. My name is Terry White, your host today, and I am with the wonderful Mary Rauzi.
Hello. Happy Thursday.
Mary's back. So just a couple quick housekeeping things. Hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, that's awesome, but you're missing out. You should head over to behance.net/live/Adobe Live. And that way you can participate in the chat, you can participate in any contest or anything that we're doing. And also, of course, today we're going to be taking a look at your portfolios, so you can get a chance to submit your portfolios for review. But that only happens on Behance. So if you're on YouTube, thanks, but you're missing out. Head over to Behance. So some folks in the chat, I see some names from yesterday, I see some new names. So welcome Design Studio, Ariana, and Gus from Adobe Live. Tim is in the house moderating as usual. Mark Lundberg, welcome, welcome, welcome. So yesterday we had some fun.
We did have some fun, and if you haven't seen that video and you're watching this later, go back and watch the one of two. A lot of things that we'll be talking about today will either be referencing things that we touched on yesterday, or there was a lot of great design process information that we went through. Did you watch it yet? Did you go game time and watch it and figure out what to change for today?
I was watching it live.
You were here live.
I was here, yeah. So I did not go back and watch the replay.
Yeah. Well, you're used to these things, so you're a pro at them at this point.
I don't know about that. But anyway, so Mary, for the people that are here for the first time, they weren't watching it yesterday, and they're going to go back and watch it. But why don't you tell us again who you are?
I'm Mary Rauzi. I do design, brand strategy, marketing, a little bit of UI, UX, pretty much anything that encapsulates a brand or what a brand might need. And we're talking about holistic branding today, which I mentioned in yesterday's episode. It had a moment in about 2014 with the term holistic branding. It went away, it became a marketing buzzword, but it's really comprehensive and it talks a lot about how branding actually should be, thinking about a 360 brand. Now that you have print, web, social media, all of these things that you have to do to keep your brand up to date in front of people, it's important to think about all of those things as one cohesive package. As most of you know, if you've been in design for a while, a logo is not just your brand. You need to have your secondary graphics, it's your photography style, it is any print materials you put out, it's the messaging, the words that you use on a website. Everything like that is encapsulated in it, so you really have to think of it from all angles. So a year and a half ago, I left the brand marketing firm that I was with, started my own company named Embr Creative, and this is the website here.
So, and don't make the mistake I made, it is EMBR, not EMBER.
Yes, that is right. And so this is the website here. It's more of a creative collective, like we talked about a little bit yesterday. Agencies are having a little bit of a hard time right now. It can be difficult to, work with a solid group of people when, commute is getting so bad in cities, and working from home is nice. So I work
definitely.
with Oh, there goes my internet.
All right. Well,
Technical difficulties. Do we have some hold music?
No.
Yeah,
let's see if I can do. it.
Go to the website and I'll figure out.
We'll see if this works.
All right, I got it. I'm up.
Okay, perfect. Well, I might need internet in a little bit because I'm going to be using Pinterest and Instagram for things. Yay! Help me. Perfect.
All right, so you can talk while he's troubleshooting.
Yeah, so we do a variety of projects. There are photographers, developers, project managers, musicians that we work with to make all of these great projects. So we all work remotely, we come together when it makes sense, and we've all worked together for quite a bit of time.
And
so
where are you based?
We're in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
And I am also a co-founder of a cannabis design agency. So if we swing back over to my screen, I can show that website.
And you'll be back on your screen in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom.
Perfect. You timed that out perfect.
I know. I saw him pressing the button.
It was a slow entry in. So we also do cannabis design work, which is a lot of fun. It's a different industry. There's not a lot of great design. You know, the last 5 years, the industry really started going.
No
and
more just leaves.
moving. No more just leaves.
No more
Don't
just
use
plants.
green and don't put a pot leaf on
Yes.
everything. Key to cannabis design these days.
Differentiate yourself just a little bit.
Yeah, but it's exciting because the regulations are always changing. Things are always moving, what you have to have on the packaging, what type of packaging you need. It's always changing, and the standard is still developing and figuring out how to communicate certain products without making them confusing and seeming like other products. It's exciting to work in.
Do
We
you
do a
ever
little bit of
catch
that,
any
too.
flack for doing that type of work?
Most of my family knew that I was a little different and doing creative. And
All right.
I mean, I'm originally from Wyoming, so there's not a lot of art or
Yeah.
things like that out there.
Just openness.
So the bar was really low for me just doing things outside of the norm anyways.
Got it.
No surprises.
Very cool.
I do a little bit of that. I also teach a brand marketing class for musicians through Zoo Labs, which is a nonprofit in Oakland. It's an accelerator program helping musicians, singers, songwriters, and other creative professionals run their business like a business. So thinking about business strategy, marketing plans, how to build your own brand, things to consider, social media, all of those elements to really get your name out there as a musician and get your career taking
All
off.
right. And Mark Lundberg says your website and work is beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Should we talk a little bit about what we're doing today? I think that's enough about me.
It can never be enough about you. But
You can watch episode 1 where I talk more.
so yes, I think we should move on to the work of the day. So yesterday you kind of left off. You were wrapping up some business cards. Mm-hmm. And today you promised us you were going to talk about doing work for social media.
Absolutely.
All right.
We left off yesterday. We showed 3 mood boards. We talked about which one
Those
the
were
client
awesome.
had picked. Yesterday, when I went back to home, which is a hotel, I went in and adjusted the mood board. So if you remember some of the feedback from yesterday, they picked the Clean Touch mood board that we were looking at, but wanted some brighter, more exciting, energetic elements and photos from the second mood board, which if you remember was a lot of colors, cobalt blues, really bright yellows. Bringing some of those in and integrating them into this board, you can see that I went in with Photoshop and brightened up some of the background of some of these photos so that it fit that brighter theme a little bit more. This blue here was more of a subdued, not quite periwinkle, but a darker version of a blue. Brightened all of that up, replaced out some of these images that were very clean and simple, had a lot of white, but had small pops of color too. Because we're gonna be using these illustrations that my client's daughter made, which are fabulous, it has some of these brighter tones in it. So integrating some of those, updating it so that today we can move forward with more of the print packaging, social media, and we have that guide. So I went in and did that.
Speaking of which, Sarah Little says, I love the tip suggesting naming mood boards. I implemented this immediately in the current project.
Awesome. Glad to hear something I've said is helping anybody.
I'm sure a lot of things you said yesterday are helping a lot of people. Help me.
That's
like
the goal.
this. Yeah.
Well, and then after I did that, I wanted to explore the mood boards and update the color palette a little bit. We were eyedroppering some of these color tones, but obviously I was working off of an outdated palette. So some of my colors I felt were a little subdued, a little muted, more than what I wanted. I went back in, updated them, and expanded the color palette as well. Typically when I'm making color palettes, especially when it's for a I was trying to say brand and product, and it just came out as brand. So when I was making the brand,
Your new word.
I like to have a lighter series of colors and then a darker series of colors. That way, if you're going in and making designs similar to this one here, in this upper corner, you see they have a darker green, they have more of this muted sagey green, they have some teals, but it gives you a wider diversity of colors to work with. Like I said, especially if it's a product. She's gonna have multiple different products. And if you didn't catch yesterday's, this is for a skincare line. It's an all natural, clean version, no preservatives line of cleansers, shave soaps, lotions, body oils, all that good stuff.
And the name of the company is?
Bombini.
Bombini.
Now.
Yes.
So yesterday we did go through a little bit of my creative brief process, how I approach some of these projects, naming, how we approach that, how I present some of those. So if you want to see that stuff, go back to episode 1. And also how I set up my mood board and logo presentation and some rationale behind that based on, psychology of working with people and the things I've learned over a few years. So this was another thing that I've learned is have a really wide color palette. Get your darkers, get your lighters. Even if you don't use them all, you have that flexibility to bring in some of those tonal values. But I also went in and selected my core colors. So having this orangish warm honey color as one of the base main colors, more of a blush, lighter, fresh for some of maybe the feminine products or having some of those floral colors in there. A neutral, so a warm beige here, so we have some of that warmth. And then bringing in some blues and 2 greens. So half warm, half cool palette, gives me a wide range to start with and setting those buckets into colors. So if it's a cleanser, if it is a men's line, if it is a serum, we have a color for each of those chunks.
Awesome.
So got all that set up.
So you got that set up, now what?
Now we are going to go in and we did some secondary graphics yesterday, looked at some patterns. We can just jump, I started some business cards as well. We started them yesterday, but I went in and refined them a little bit. So you might remember this one here in the middle was one that I started off with. And I also have little masks around this. So it's just this gray layer that I have on a separate layer that you can work within the format, get things that are hanging off, but you don't have to look at it. So it's nice to turn it off and on. You can just see how it looks once it's cropped.
Right.
So putting in some information here. I'm also trying not to say so as much. I realized I said so a lot when I was nervous yesterday.
Why were you nervous?
I don't know.
Just
Viewership of thousands of people across the world.
It's okay.
I feel like most creatives aren't used to this format.
The best part is that they're not here in the room, so you can't see their faces.
That's true, but we can see all of their icons and their beautiful comments.
I mean, but you can't see their looks of disappointment.
Horror. Yes. It's probably good. But, you only get better by making mistakes, figuring out what you did wrong, and then doing better. Therefore, I'm going to try to do better today.
Well, you did great yesterday.
Wonderful. I want to say so, but I'm not going to. We're going into business cards, updated all of these. I added the information to the back, looked at how I could lay out some of this information and a variety of doing it, bringing in some of those patterns, looking at if we don't have Andrea, who is the founder's name on it, if it's just a general card. She's going to be at a lot of farmers markets or just meeting people, intermittently as she's out and about. Bringing in just more general information in case she doesn't want to be the personal contact on it. That way people can find the website, find the social media, have an email to contact, purchase some of the products, but not have her personal contact anyways.
Now, speaking of the social media, and we kind of talked about this yesterday when I mentioned the business card of the one handle that worked for all that person's social media accounts. Do you, in your branding process, once you came up with the Bombini, did you tell them to, hey, go out and secure all of this name everywhere on social media, or do you handle that?
I usually have the client do it. I can if they need me to. Some clients aren't as comfortable registering a domain name. They've never really had to do it before. They're not sure of the process. In that case, I'll have them, sign up for a GoDaddy account or whatever domain name they want to work with. I'll go into the account, secure the domain name, send them pricing. Even in my presentation, when we looked at naming yesterday, I include potential domain names with those. As we all know, it's really hard to get just a simple .com unless it's a made-up word, something along those lines. So you're either looking at a .co or a .agency or a .shop, things like that. I usually like to go in, price out what those options are. That way, if they can get bombini.com, they know that it'll be $2,000 or whatever it is, but they can make that decision. They have all the financials, they can decide.
All right, so Nora says, we only saw your wonderful work, Mary. And Kroll says, very beautiful, wild, beautiful design, really, and really resembles the bee. So
Awesome, that's what we're going for.
So you don't have to be nervous. They loved it.
Nervous laugh.
Nervous laugh.
And then Tim is also asking about, do you worry about printing material at this stage? Are you talking more about business cards and print materials in the way of menus, business cards, things like that, and how we're going to be approaching these things? You might be referencing this gradient that I have here to represent a little bit of a gold foil. I do something like this so that the client can see what it would look like with something additional on it. If we integrated a gold or a rose gold or a champagne gold or even a spot varnish, I like to represent it a little visually. Most clients aren't in design. If they were in design, they wouldn't be hiring somebody like us. It shows them how it can feel, how it can push a little bit to the background, especially if we did it on this warmer coral color, and then having the icon in white.
I like that version.
And it gives something tactile for people to touch.
Right. Well, it kind of has that depth look to it. Looks like the honeycombs look like they're a little 3D, and the gold really pops on that color, as well as just, again, that honeycomb bee theme.
Mm-hmm. Bringing out that subtleness of nature and the bee without being too overbearing, which is why I created some of these patterns where it is the honeycomb, but it's more of an abstracted, artistic interpretation of the honeycomb. It's not straight honeycomb, but we have enough of that nuance. People, they'll kind of get the gist and get the nuance of that.
I think so.
And then also looking at something in a lighter blue, we talked about...
And also, it looks like you went vertical on these.
Did a vertical one. I usually like to give a horizontal card version and a vertical card version.
How often do they pick one or the other?
It just depends on the client.
Okay.
Some people will have an affinity for a vertical card because, majority of cards are horizontal. Sometimes you'll get a client that really loves the vertical card because it's a little different. We talked about accessibility in colors yesterday, and I did want to point this out because I did choose this lighter mint blue for the back of this card, but you'll notice that everything on here is really large, and it would be something I would consider maybe doing a spot gloss on as well, so you get that extra level. But I'm okay with doing it in this scenario, one, because the logo is really large, and we're doing that artistic, version of it where it's cropping off a little bit. But it's more of just a beautiful graphic on the back side versus being pertinent information that they really need to know. You also have the company name and the website down here, and if they're meeting her in person, she's already said the name. You're not just gonna leave these on a table and people are gonna pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the context of introducing yourself, you can take some more liberties with a print piece because you're gonna be there to explain it. If you're not there to explain it and it is something, a postcard, for example, that you're leaving out on a table and you won't be there to talk about the company, then make sure that all of your information is very clear, very readable.
All right, well, you're getting lots of love for the gold foil. And TJ Russell says, great advice. And
Awesome.
Moritz says, hello guys, good work.
Love those. All right. Went in, did these yesterday. What is your favorite? Which one do you think she's gonna pick? She's probably watching right now, so if you are, Andrea.
So she hasn't picked one yet.
She hasn't picked one yet. I just designed them last night.
For the horizontal, I'm definitely gonna go with the back design of the one on the left. And for the front design, I like the one with the name on it, and Andrew Taylor on the bottom right. And for the vertical, I'm not a fan of that blue, just personally, just me.
Yeah.
But I definitely like the front or the name side of the card.
And proof that all design is subjective.
Right. Yeah. That color, I would pick a different color, but for me, if it were my card.
Mm-hmm.
But
No, I lean toward this really beautiful honey color as well.
Andrea, you pick whatever color you want. It's your card.
She will. She'll pick which one she loves. All right. That's where we are.
Okay.
Starting off today, because we didn't have time to go into more social media and the digital aspect of things, I do want to start with that one.
Perfect.
Getting some votes for the middle one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now that my internet's working, I usually start off, this is her personal one. She's going to be creating a second Instagram for Bombini itself. We're really starting from scratch. She has started off by, showing lavender, showing a little bit about the products, having some of these product shots. When she was working on shampoo bars, showing a little bit of that. But I usually like to start off by screen grabbing some of these so that we have a basis to work from. And I found that it usually helps clients if you put things in a frame of reference. And we talked yesterday how when I'm putting together these presentations, I build the presentation in tandem with designing out some of the assets.
Mm-hmm.
I went in yesterday and started building my P3, so it's the third time that I've met with her. So bringing round 2, updating some of these slides, taking out anything that's unnecessary, and updating my links. Because I'm building them in tandem, every time I make a change to the document that it's attached to, for example, I added in all of these colors. I have saved this file, so it's not broken my link, but it's notifying me that something's changed in my link and I need to resync it. This way, I can just resync it, and it'll update all of those pages in it that I may have changed if I've added pages. Now that I have the colors more defined, I can add a new page in here.
And so now you're working, again, for those who weren't here yesterday, you've been going back and forth between Illustrator and InDesign. So she's in InDesign right now, where you've got some master pages set up with all the stuff on it that you want consistent on every page of the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can she's placed Illustrator native files so that if she goes back to Illustrator and update, all she has to do is come back to InDesign and update the link, and the presentation's updated as well.
That's correct. And I usually like to have these set up already. It doesn't take a lot of time if you don't have a presentation for yourself, even if you're just a freelancer, if you're contracting and doing extra work on the side, or you have a full-time job. Always make an identity for yourself. It's really easy to set up these master pages. Put a header and footer on one. Use that one as a template for a few content pages. Set up your thank you page, because then when you start putting those native Illustrator or Photoshop files, you can plug them all in, make changes to your document, and then you don't have to spend an hour putting together a presentation later. You don't have to worry about making sure that you get your work done the day before, although you should always get your work done the day before.
If not earlier.
Yes. But you don't have to stress about having it in a presentation or running out of time and having to just send it to a client and talking them through. It looks more professional. It looks like you know what you're doing. And if you set it up quickly, it won't take that much more time.
Right. And just for people that are not watching the lower third, it is less than 6 minutes away for the chat and win. So just be ready to chat. That's all you have to do to win.
We might have to give him a question prompt today.
Oh yeah, you know what? We should do that.
I had a question for yesterday, and we didn't ask it in time. So
we'll do it. We'll do your question.
So all we've done so far, I just added. Oh, I'm on that. So I added a new page. It's automatically plugging in my content page, which I already want. If you're not familiar with using master pages in some of these things, you'll notice if I try to grab some of these things, they're locked. All you have to do to unlock to edit these is hold Option, Command, and then go, nope.
Actually, Command-Shift-Click.
Yeah.
There you go.
Command-Shift-Click. I do them so quick, I forget what actual keys it is anymore.
So basically what you just did in InDesign, when something's on the master page, you typically don't want to touch it, move it by accident, edit it by accident. But if you wanted to unlock it from the master page on that particular page, Command-Shift-Click or PC Control-Shift-Click, and then it unlocks that one page, that one item, so you can customize it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to nab this photo or this live link from the page prior, and I'm going to paste in place on this one, which I have set up in InDesign as Command F, which is what paste in place is on Illustrator.
Ah.
Find is Command F in InDesign, but
yes.
I override it because I use paste in place more than I use find.
But
so
did you set up a different key for find, or you just use the menu?
I use the menu.
'Cause
I
you
don't
don't
find
ever
a
use
lot
find.
of things.
Right, okay, that makes
I
sense.
don't design as many books or
And I get that a lot
annual
from,
reports,
I get
so
that
it's
a lot
not.
from new users, like, oh man, I wish this keyboard shortcut existed or it was different. And I was like, well, in most of the products, go change it. Go change it to whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, you can kind of set up keyboard shortcuts. So if you can see in my dialog box, it has the defaults, typical Photoshop, Illustrator ones. So if you are used to Photoshop and now you're working in Illustrator, you can set those so that they are the Photoshop.
Right.
So you can
So
kind of
that
sync
InDesign
those
is
up
using
a
the
little bit.
Photoshop keyboard shortcuts. Right.
I usually only have a few that I like to have custom. So you just make your own, and all you do is say new set. And all you have to go in and change one of these, settings. So mine was in, I believe, edit. And you can go, it's the find change, or it was the find next. So you just override it. You just say new shortcut, and it overrides it. You hit save and set to that.
And InDesign was one of the first products to really embrace the user changeable keyboard shortcuts. And one of the strategic things that the team did way back in the day was InDesign, like very early on, had a set of Quark Express keyboard shortcuts. So if you were used to Quark and you were switching over and you were like complaining that the keyboard shortcuts weren't the same, switch to that set and now you're using your old keyboard shortcuts.
Now you're good.
For people that don't want to learn new things.
That's okay. Whatever streamlines your
I'm
process
kidding.
and makes you more effective at your job, like we were talking about yesterday, there are a million ways to do everything in these programs, whether it's masking, inserting files. It's always good to share those because somebody might be doing it a quicker way than what you are. You might be doing some things in a more streamlined approach. If you don't share those, nobody else will know and you have to struggle through alone.
Right.
We're going to help each other. Now that I have the new page, I'm going to link up. So I hit Command D to place while I was clicked on this image. So Command D, I click on the file that I want.
Wait, hang on. I have to give a shout out to Dimitri. Dimitri's all the way here from Russia as a designer. So, Dimitri,
welcome.
Welcome. And we are less than 2 minutes away from the chat and win. So
Yes, we are.
We'll take a break in about 2 minutes to do that.
Yeah, we'll get a few of these pages plugged in and then we'll chat and win.
All right.
So I am clicking on my new file, logo round 2. I'm making sure to show import options. Make sure to have that clicked because what that will do is we'll bring up a dialog box where you can select whichever page you want. Right now I'm inserting the colors. So I just find my color page, which is number 10. I hit OK and it replaces them out. Nice and easy. I'm looking at it right now, and this is a little bit large on my page. I'm gonna go back in, make these just a little bit smaller, move them down a little bit. I'm gonna hit Command Save on Illustrator. Go back to my file. You'll see that it's a little bitmap. The image quality isn't there, and that's because it needs to be updated. I also have in my links palette that I have this little yellow icon that says that it needs to be updated. I hit that circle, it updates it, and I'm done.
Awesome.
There we go. I will add in the second page while we're at it. You can also move these up because in InDesign you can crop things really easy when you have images by using the blue window,
Using the frame.
using the frame. You have all the technical words.
I've been doing this for a while.
This blue thingy with the little square on it, it's the technical term.
The blue rectangle, yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to the gold rectangle, and I can move it within that mask too. So it moves it within that frame if you need to.
Perfect.
Okay, we have 5 seconds, so I'm going to cut off here so we can
All
chat
right,
and win.
and then we will be right back.
We need to ask
with
the
a chat and
question.
win. Oh, what's the question?
Yeah, I want to know, so have you ever heard of this the superpower. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
What would it
but
be?
what I really want to know is what is your superpower? But there's always a drawback to everything. There's no good without bad. So every superpower has to have the drawback to it. What's the drawback to your superpower?
So what would be your superpower and what would be the drawback to it? That's your chat and win. So we'll be right back.
Let us know.
It's a tough question. Like, what would your superpower be? And then, but you have to have an Achilles heel to it.
Like Tim says, he has the power of flight, but he'd only have it for 2 seconds.
Right.
You just get going.
For 2 seconds, then what, you crash or you're just on the ground?
Depends how fast you can fly.
So Paul Tranny's in the house. What's up, Paul? My colleague.
What would yours be?
Mine would be invisibility, but only during the day.
That works.
All right. So that, I couldn't do it at night. So that would be it.
There you go. Mine always was I could stop time, but I would still be moving, and anybody I would be touching at the time could move.
Okay.
But the problem with it is that I still age, and you would still age if you were in there with me. So you end up aging, well, depending on how much you use the superpower, double of everyone else. So can only use it for really important naps.
Okay, you got to do more than just list the superpower. It has to be what the drawback to it would be, or what about it would not work under certain circumstances.
Or Tim's second superpower was turning into a lamp, but only once. Another favorite of mine, ice block feet. The drawback is your superpower is ice block feet.
There you go.
Not very helpful.
No. You want to be really strong, Alexandra, but what else?
Yeah. What's your drawback, Alexandria?
What's the drawback to it?
Too strong.
Yes.
It's instant Hulk powder. Powder. That's something else
That's a different power.
That's a different power.
Superpower plus drawback. Yep.
Oh, and we have a winner.
Nish Dilhara, if I'm saying that correctly. Thank you for being our winner today. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And you will get a notification via, I think, we notify you via your Behance email or messaging. And you'll get Sticker Mule stickers. For those of you who missed out and didn't win today, you can still participate and get a discount. So if you head over to stickermule.com, Adobe Live 19, you can get a pack for a 10 pack for $1. So basically 10 cents a piece for the custom 3x3 die cut stickers.
Yeah.
So even if you didn't win, you can still get them pretty cheap.
You could illustrate your superpower using a daily challenge and have stickers made out of it.
My superpower is spending money. My drawback is I don't have enough.
I feel like that's most of our superpower.
You won. Yes,
Awesome.
you did.
Good job, Nish.
Yes. We never have to, with that challenge, we never have to worry about if they're here because they had the chat to win.
Yeah.
So they're always here.
They're always here.
All right.
Excellent. Well, let's dive back in. Breathe underwater, but scared of water. That is a good one, too.
That's a good one.
All right, so I'm adding pages to my presentation. I'm going to add the core colors now that I have this one in here, hitting Command D, hitting round 2, making sure show import is there. I know this was the page after the other one I put in. No, it's not, I was wrong. It's the 12th page. Inserting that in. That one's a little bit large for me. So you can either go in and change the Illustrator file. Alternately, you can just take that gold bracket down a little bit to make that image size a little smaller.
And again, you're placing these from a multi-artboard Illustrator file. So you're actually being able to pick which artboard you want to bring in.
That's correct. This one also you see is cropping off a little bit for my presentation. I'm gonna go into Illustrator. I'm gonna hold Option and Shift at the same time. Option's going to make it so that when I scale things, it scales from the center point in. Shift is gonna make sure I maintain my ratio as I do that, which you don't have to do in Photoshop anymore because updates.
Unless you want to.
unless you want
You
to.
can always switch it back.
Override everything.
Override.
And because we have selected, I believe, 6 colors for the main colors, I'm going to update those in here as well. That way you can see the icon and everything. I'm going to go edge to edge. Pull this one over. Again, holding Shift, but not Option this time because I only want to go one direction with it. I'm going to click on one of these squares, grab my eyedropper tool, and select one of the colors that I haven't input yet. And I'll go with this dark green. So now I have my color palette in there. Make sure I bleed off the edges just a tiny bit. Don't want to have that white line. Hit Command Save on the side.
Apparently we're playing cat music. I don't know the reference.
Are we playing cat music? I can't hear the music.
A lot of people meowing.
It's lovely. I know it's weird because I always work with music on,
Yeah.
and it's silent. I'm just going in and updating my links. Typically when I'm working, I won't go in and update my links as often as I am right now. I'll just go through, make all the updates, and then just update them in one fell swoop. But for showing
Now,
and telling.
for the social, trying to stay on target. The social media platform you showed so far was Instagram. Are you doing any type of social media work for the client for other platforms besides Instagram?
I'm going to do Instagram and Facebook because those
Okay.
are the ones that she's going to be the most active on for right now. We can always extend it out because we're building a holistic brand. We'll have longer cover photo image proportions set up. We will have
And what's
your main
source,
avatar.
What's your source for staying up to date with the latest platform sizes?
I had a child.
Okay.
So eventually, he'll be into social media really heavily and he can tell me what the new things are and all the sizes for things.
Because they're constantly changing.
But for right now, yeah, I try to build things that are really adaptive. Now that you have so many screen sizes, you can't really depend on, is it a 1920 width? Is
Right.
it going down to 1080? So try to make things that have enough space on the side that you can shift and move, and when it crops into the center,
Because
it's not gonna
also,
make a big
even
deal.
when you make a nice, banner for your Facebook, YouTube, whatever, nice and wide on a desktop or tablet, but on a phone, it's going to be really skinny. And if there's stuff on the sides, no one will see it on the phone.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. I tend to either use images with graphics in the middle or offset them 1/3. For example, if you're on Facebook, I don't know that I'm logged in right now because I cleared my browser history before coming on live, so there were no surprises. But
And I
let's
won't
bring that
ask you what
forward.
those surprises would be. Let's move on.
well, I've heard horror stories.
Yes, I'm sure.
So don't want to be another horror story. At any rate, that, top bar, you have the image over on the left-hand side of your avatar.
Yeah.
So you usually want to work within that 2/3 side over on the
I
other
should probably
edge.
give a tip. Hang on, let me bring up a page, and then I'll have.
Do you have your Facebook
switch-
logged in?
No,
Just screen grab
oh,
yours
I
for me.
do, but we're gonna do it differently. Let's see if I can do this real quick. Hang on here. There we go. And let's see. Let's do Facebook cover.
And while you find the
Okay,
tip
so,
here-
and Paco, if you can switch to me real quick. So one of the ways you can even just test your design to make sure it will fit and you're not sure how it would look on a certain size is if you, I'm on it right now, but here I'll do it from scratch. You head over to spark.adobe.com on your browser. And of course you can have the Spark app on your phone. And you hit the plus sign to create a new post. You can just search for whatever it is you're going to create. So if you're going to create a YouTube thumbnail, you can search for YouTube thumbnails. You're going to get nice templates. You can customize those. But even if you just click on one, let's do something simpler. Let's say we create from this one. You can get rid of everything on the template and just drop your content in to see how it will look, because you know this has already been sized for a YouTube thumbnail. So Facebook cover, Twitter header, YouTube thumbnail, YouTube banner, whatever it is, whatever you've designed, if you want to make sure it's going to work on all these platforms without having to actually post it, do it on Spark. And that way you'll see if it fits and how it's going to look.
That's great.
So spark.adobe.com, free to use.
That's awesome. I am going to...
So if you hit the blue plus sign, after I don't even know if you have to sign in to do this part, maybe,
I
maybe not.
learn something all the time. I think it automatically assigned me in from my... Love you guys, but I don't do newsletters.
All right, yeah, that's okay. And
Oh,
yeah,
there
and
we
then
go.
you search for whatever it is you want to create for, and it will
That's-
give you the exact size.
Great. So let's look for a Facebook header.
Might be called cover, but we'll see.
Oh.
There you go.
We'll create from this one. Have some back to school. It looks like this one's a template for.
Mm-hmm. And
That's
again,
great.
you don't have to worry about what the template is. You're more getting it for the size.
Okay. We'll learn it together.
And then you can delete all that stuff or replace the content with your own.
There you go. So does it show me exactly where the sizes are so that I can place things in, or it's just going to crop it?
It's
for
going
me?
to crop it for you.
Okay.
Yep. So, and also, even if you start it with one, if you hit the resize button on the right there,
Look at that.
they're all there, right there for you.
Event cover, page covers.
Oh, and if you
YouTubes,
hover
all
it, it looks
that
like it
good
gives you the size.
stuff.
Hover over it, boom.
Yep. There you go. So that's perfect. So if I'm doing a Facebook profile cover, I guess if I'm clicked on it, it's not going to show me, but it's 1640 by 624.
And what's nice about doing it this way, you don't have to keep up with it because the Spark team's keeping up with it. They're always adjusting these for whatever changes on whatever platform happen.
Yeah, that's great. So now that I know what size I need, I can make a new one. Document, that is. We were at what, 1640 by, was it 624?
Oh, don't ask me to remember things.
Math and remembering
Yes,
things. Those are
remembering
things that we
things.
do not do here.
Yes.
Okay, so 1640 by 624, 72 DPI. I am going to go to RGB because this is for...
Yeah, and that's another great way to do it. Just create, then you can create your document the exact size you need.
Yep, exactly. I'm going to change my background contents to white because I want to make sure I see every edge that I need. I'm going to hit save on... I like to save them immediately because I don't like to lose things. I'm in the wrong file.
So Fatima's asking, what's the topic today? Today we're doing holistic branding and graphic design. Welcome. And Jason, you're right. It was such a pain trying to keep up with the sizes.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to name my file. And typically with nomenclature on my files, I always start out either with the full client name if it's short like Bombini, or an abridged version of it if it's a really long client name. What bucket of items I'm making, so is it for social media, is it for web, is it for the brand identity, mood boards, and then what specific thing it is. And then if I'm gonna do multiple rounds of it, you can do round 01, round 02, or 1B, 1C. That way you can just track everything, and if somebody asks, what did we go over in that first presentation? You just pull up P01,
Okay.
and you're good, and you know exactly what you showed,
You
so
are
you just
very,
keep it organized.
you know, from all the graphic designers I've sat with, you are very organized by comparison. I'm impressed with your determination to have things named and easily referred back to. Great job.
Well, good. I'm hiding it well because I feel like I'm organized chaos because
okay.
I have the creative
Well,
brain and then also
there's-
the heavy OCD and anxiety. of
There's
keeping
chaos,
everything
and then there's
organized.
creative chaos. So
Yeah.
I'd rather you be the creative chaos as opposed to just chaos.
Which is almost the job description for a graphic designer. You have to be creative, but you have to have the strategy and the research and all of your ducks in a row to be able to create something that's effective and beautiful, because if you're just creating something beautiful, it's not effective design anyways. All right, I really like this honey-colored color that that I have
Technicolor
going
color?
on here. I'm going to use it for my main brand color right now. Andrea might hate it, and we'll have to change it later. Not sure yet, but I'm just going to move forward with it for now.
Andrea's remaining silent in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she's logged in or not, but she's probably watching. All right, I was in Illustrator. I just hit Command-C for copy, went over to my Photoshop, hit Command-V for paste. I have the dialog box where I can add it as a smart object, pixels, path, or shape layer. I'm just gonna add it as pixels for right now because it doesn't matter if it pixelates, it's just a color block.
Right, yeah.
Now that Photoshop has updated, you don't have to hold Shift to keep things in proportion. If you hold Shift now, that's when you can break that proportion, which is really nice. Because this is just a color block.
And I'm going to go on a limb and say the way it should have been all along, but people will disagree with me.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree too. Especially when you're compositing or things, you don't want to skew that photo unless you have a specific reason to.
You want it proportionally 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
But Adobe has also launched so many, like Puppet Warp and things like that, that it makes more sense to have it in your ratio when you drop it in, because then you can shift it later.
Mm-hmm. And like we said yesterday, if you don't like it, there's a preference to set it back to the way it used to behave.
Mm-hmm.
The old way.
All right, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm just gonna do pixels on that. Nope. See, I'm still used to doing it. Old habits die hard.
Well, and also you spent most of the time in Illustrator, which doesn't do it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe at some point.
All right. So right now I hold Option and I drag so that I am pulling an exact copy. I am holding Shift, which means it's going to align it either at a 45 or a straight line from the other one. So I'm holding Shift, Option, click, and then moving with my other hand. So I'm going to put two of them on there like that. I'm going to grab the name.
So Eric says you're really good at designing.
Well, thank you.
Landon says love the business card.
Did it again. All right. I'm going to put the name in here. I get these nice guides that show up, which is awesome because it shows me everything is in order.
Sam's in the house, and yes, Jason, I believe that probably is Victoria from Photoshop World. She is awesome.
Also, another key that I use a lot, I use the nudge tool, which is just the arrows back and forth. But if you hold Shift as you're doing that, you get like a 10 pixel jump versus a 1 pixel
a bigger
jump.
nudge.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you need to move things quick, I hold Shift, go for those guys. I want to make sure all three of these are aligned. Although my guide said that they were close to aligned, I'm going to highlight all three, use my Align tool to make sure they're perfectly centered, and it looks like we're good to go. Now, I put Bombini in the right-hand side of this image. That way, when we take it into Facebook and you have the avatar
The actual
over
person's
heart on the
face, right?
side.
Yeah, or whatever they're using. Right.
Correct.
Avatar. That was a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So their avatar, their
Avatar's
face,
there,
whatever
it
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can put it over here on the side without getting that shadowing that's on the bottom. They also have a gradient with the company name on it. This way, if it crops, you're just cropping in, you can still see the name of it. So I'm going to save that one for now. I also want to put these things in artboards because I do want to do another one that's more of a lifestyle-based one. That way, if I do the actual icon for the avatar, we'll look at them together and see if all the color looks great together or if we need some diversity in there and some texture and layering.
So Landon's asking about the type, and yes, Landon, it has been addressed, so we do forgive you for asking. But the easiest, it would take a while to explain it again. So the easiest thing is to go back and watch yesterday's episode, and you'll see how she came up with the type choices for the client.
So I'm going to name this artboard Bombini Facebook 01. I really like working in artboards in Photoshop because I can do a few different options and then you can export them as all JPEGs later. I set it to artboard from layers, which because my yellow honey layer is a different size than what I wanted it to be, I just need to adjust this. Is there a quicker way to do this?
A quicker way to...
Make the artboard and have it be the same size that your crop frame is?
Duplicate the artboard.
I haven't made an artboard yet.
No, I mean, you want it to be the same as this one?
Mm-hmm. So if we're going in on this, and I hit artboard from layers,
okay,
it takes it to the layer size, which is helpful in some cases. But because I already have my frame size here, I would like it if it was
what
still
if you
the
typed in the size you
1640.
want it to be?
I mean, I can do that. I was just curious if you knew
I
some
don't know
secret
the
way to do
secret
it.
way to do that, to override it, other than overriding it and typing it in.
Use your powers.
Yes, use your powers.
Use your
of typing.
superpowers of Adobe evangelism.
Oh, okay, that's a feature request. Noted.
Okay, so we're gonna name this Bombini Facebook 01. So now I have, now if I click on that artboard, I again can hold Alt or Option and drag it down. I'm holding Shift so they're aligned because OCD.
That's how I would keep them the same size. It's just
Yeah.
duplicate them. Yeah.
Once you get one, you can duplicate them, and usually I start with them building it in artboards when in that initial dialog box. But I'm gonna delete all these layers, and I'm gonna pop over to Adobe Stock so that I can look at some of the boards. Where's my libraries? I went through, pulled a few images yesterday as well that we could potentially use in some of these. I think I'm going to, I like both of these photos. I do really like this one because it's clean and simple. I would like to buy this photo. Nope. I have credits.
Are you logged in?
Wait.
If you're not logged in, your credits aren't showing.
I do have credits. I have 50 credits.
Okay.
You can always just download a preview as well. Maybe because it's premium.
That's why. Yeah, credits don't apply to premiums.
Ah, well, we can use it as a placeholder for now anyway.
Yep, you can always use it as a FPL.
Here we go. And I typically won't buy these anyways until I have client approval.
Absolutely.
So it's always good to start with
Because technically the client's buying it.
yeah, the client's buying it. All right, I'm going to get a rectangle, and I'm going to hold Option to get my eyedropper tool so I can pull a little bit of this pink color that is behind her. It's gonna automatically go down into my front swatch. So when I draw this rectangle, it'll automatically make it that color. I'm dropping down that layer so it falls behind. And I'm going to apply a mask to this image layer. That way I can get rid of some of this vignetting, maybe add a little bit more, but it'll be a little bit more workable for me so that I can extend out the background on that photo, maybe add a logo and use it as more of a lifestyle shot from behind. It's also pretty similar to this coral color that I've started with here, but it can be better, it can be a little bit closer. Now that I'm in my Illustrator dock down here, hitting Command C, hitting Command V for pixels, just so I have that color reference.
All right.
I'm gonna hide it now, but
I want to see how your method for doing this. I have mine. I want to see what yours is.
yeah, I know, I'm sitting by the master, so what I'm going to do, and she has this beautiful hair, which can be really difficult to mask. I'm gonna get as close as I can with the magic tool. I'm also going to take out the Adobe stock number. Sorry, Adobe, but I just want it out of the way for right now. I do have my reference photo, so I always have the stock number. I would assume it's probably also on, yep,
It's
the
file
image
name as well.
number. So I have it because I don't want to lose that, because if she does like it, I need to be able to backtrack to it. So I highlighted all of the background. I'm going to hit Command-Shift-I, which will invert what I'm selecting. So now I'm only selecting her and her hair and the subject of the photo versus all of the background.
Got it.
While I am on a selection tool, I'm going to do select and mask so I can refine some of my edges, especially with hair. It didn't do too bad because I'm
looks pretty good.
working on the same color. I'm not drastically changing it yet. But I do like to make sure, especially with hair, that I'm refining the edge a little bit. I am hitting, you have 2 brackets on your keyboard. I am hitting the bracket on the right to make it larger.
I learned this because I used to say that all the time. Oh, use your bracket keys to make your brush bigger or smaller. Until someone said, I don't have any bracket keys because they were in a different country.
Oh.
So on your US keyboard, you've got bracket keys. If you're in a different country, I don't know what the keyboard shortcut would be.
Yeah, if you know what that shortcut is, please let us know. Maybe you'll help somebody else.
So yeah, someone was like, I don't have bracket keys. I'm like, how do you not have bracket? Oh, you're from wherever it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you have an international audience.
That's right.
It's everywhere is different. Everyone is different. So I'm using the Refine Edge tool, which is the second tool down. And I'm just going along these little bits of hair. And it's a really great tool that detects some of these pieces and brings some of them back. So that way you have a more seamless integration of your background and
So we need to
hair.
answer a couple questions from Fatima about the stock and so forth and so on. So first and foremost, the question was, well, where do you get stock images from? So you can go to stock.adobe.com, as Tim has already put the URL in the chat. And you can also search for stock right inside of your Adobe products. So if you go to your libraries panel, if you can switch to me real quick. What did you search for to find this, by the way?
This image?
Yeah.
I believe beautiful skin or skin and bright.
So I'm just going to do beautiful skin bright. And did I type that right? Something's wrong with my stock, or I'm not online. But anyway, you can search right here in your library panel. Switch back to Mary. Do you have your library panel handy in Photoshop? Your CC libraries.
Let me pull it up.
There you go. And just type a search right in the top there. Nope, very top. Yep. And so it'll find the results right there in Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. You can drag the image right into your design from there.
And it looks like it's searching within my libraries that I made. So I have 2 separate libraries, because we're going to be doing a second edit on some of the illustrations that she gave me. This one is under the Bombini library. And if I search skin under Bombini, it's showing me the images that directly relate to that word within my library. So if you have really big libraries and maybe you just do one giant one for one client, you can search within that. So that's a really great way to find it quick as well.
Okay, so switch back to me. I got it working now. We're playing ping pong on the computer. So I typed in beautiful skin bright. And it's bringing up my results right here. So if you were working on something or wanted to work on something, you can say, hey, I don't know if my client really will like this image. Let's say I go with this one. I don't have to buy it right now. I can just simply save a preview. And that will save a preview to my current library, the low res with the watermark, the file name or file number, and I can use that to show the client, mock up the design as Mary's doing. And if my client does like it, then I can come right back here and right-click and license the image for whatever that particular image costs. So typically, you can get some free credits right off the bat just by going to stock.adobe.com and getting, I think you can get up to 10 free credits as a Creative Cloud customer. And that way you can start just playing with stock and even getting a few images that don't cost you anything.
Perfect.
The premium ones are expensive, but the regular ones aren't so bad. All right, back to Mary.
All right. There's a couple of different ways that I match these backgrounds. Now that I have her masked out, and I'll show you what I did really quick. Once we had all of the background selected, we inverted it so it focused in on the subject. I refined those edges, and then if you go down, there is a rectangle with a circle in it. That's your mask tool. Once I have everything selected, I can click that and it'll automatically mask whatever I had within my selection. So it cut in around her. I refined a couple of little things, mostly just around her sweater where it had caught you know, the weave of her sweater. So I went in and painted a little bit of black. That's one thing that I really love about masks.
Mask, yep.
Because you can paint with black or white on the mask layer and it'll either remove or add. So there's always a way to undo. You might have noticed, well, you can't really see my shirt because I'm sitting behind my laptop, but it says thank you Command Z on it. That's the best tool ever. In addition to masks, because you never want to do something that you can't undo at a certain point. There's always room for that flexibility.
Definitely.
So I adjusted that. And now I'm going to go in and I want the background and everything to be a little more saturated to match our brand more and bring in this brighter coral color. There's a couple of ways that I can do that. As you can see, she has a lot of this older color in through her hair, which can be a challenge to edit some of that out.
Hair is always challenging, especially if the background that it was originally on is not very well contrasted. If it's well contrasted, much easier.
Yep, and depending on the other colors in the photo as well. Sometimes I'll go in on this layer. Nope, didn't mean to do that. Accidentally double-clicked. But I can either go in. Oh, it's a smart layer. So.
Wait, let me grab that file number real quick. I'm curious now. I just want to play with it. Stock.adobe.com and the file number, not templates, all images. File number for that image is 232552557. Okay.
No, I'll do it my way and then you do it your way.
Oh no, 2557.
You show me some things.
I just want to see that image. Okay, I found it. Yep, same one.
Okay.
I'm going to play while you keep working.
Perfect. So one way I'll do this, I do like to replace the color if possible. Unfortunately, most of the time I have to rasterize it, but I already know I'm going to be using this image, so I don't mind rasterizing it. And I can replace color. And I'm going to zoom into this dusty pink color. And you can kind of adjust the hue on it so you can see I can make it more red, I can make it more magenta. You can bring up the lightness and the saturation till your colors match. But that being said, you can also see it's adjusted her skin tone a little bit. It's made it a little more yellow. So you can bring down the feather to isolate some of those spots just within the hair if you want.
So you're using selective color?
I'm using replace color on this one.
Got it.
Sometimes that doesn't always work. Like I said, if their skin tone is similar or like she's wearing a sweater in this, sometimes it's not as effective. Other times I'll use a gradient map.
Okay.
And that'll be a little more effective for me. So if I turn on this gradient map that I have, I already sampled the background color over here that I know that I'm going to want for that other color. And then for this other one, I'm going to do a darker brown that matches her hair a little bit. And adjust it so that it is there. Now in my mask,
That's actually a cool look right there.
It is
You
really
just
cool
left
look.
it that way.
yeah, and it's a great way to do a duotone
Yeah.
and still have it adjustable instead of changing the color mode on it specifically. Changing the full color mode works great if you already know what duotones you're going to be using, but gradient maps are awesome when you're still trying to figure that out. But thanks to the mask layer, I put a little square on here so that I could see my color layer underneath, but I'm gonna hold Command I to invert it to all black, and then come back in with my white brush and just do some of the edges of her hair.
Okay.
So this works good for things like hair, simple things where you don't have to go too far into the photo and you wanna match that background color. And then I can see that I may have gotten it a little bit too yellow in there. I'm gonna turn down my flow for some of these smaller pieces, so I'm pulling in some of that color, but not too much. And then my gradient map is just a little yellow and a little bit dark. So I can double click on the icon in the layers palette. It'll bring up my adjustment. I can double click on that crayon color and take that more to a red so it matches her natural skin or hair color there. A little more red. Say okay. And there we go.
Amazing.
It's usually how I deal with hair, but I'd love to see how you do it as
I'm
well.
I'm struggling with this image. This image is not easy at all.
Hair
That's why I
can
wanted
be
to
a
play
challenge.
with it. Yeah. This image is not ready for prime time. Now, also keep in mind, there's another factor of this too, is that this image is low res because it's just the preview, and that's also making it harder.
Yep. And one of the other reasons I like to function with a gradient map or a replace color is because it's really quick. Because I'm working with a watermarked image, I don't want to spend too much time.
Right, yeah,
because
absolutely.
those are billable hours that if she doesn't like this photo, if she doesn't like the color, if we need to adjust it in any way, I'm not spending a ton of time on editing something that I'm going to have to re-edit with a full res later.
Yep.
But this is good enough for me right now. I am going to add a little bit of saturation. And actually, I want to do it as an adjustment layer in my layers palette. If you're new to Photoshop, you can always adjust things using image adjustment, which is going to make those actual edits to your image itself. Like we were just talking about, I skew to the preference of things that I can adjust, shift, layer on masks, things like that. And when you do these adjustment layers, it's making it directly to the photo, so you can't undo that. I only use them for things like adding a little bit of saturation, maybe adding some brightness to a mood board image. But if I can, I use the adjustment layers in the layers palette.
Okay.
I'm using hue saturation on this because I want to brighten up everything just a little bit because of the colors that are in our palette. So I'm going to take the saturation up just a little bit. Just give her a little bit more of a glow. But you'll notice that it also brightened up my background color and this mask area around. So if you look closely, you can see this glow that is now behind her. The way that I'm going to get rid of that is go in between these two layers, between hue and saturation and the image of the woman. I'm going to hold Option, and you'll see I get a little tool that has a square with an arrow down in it, if you can see that. So I'm going to hold Option, I'm going to click, and what that's going to do is mask that hue saturation layer into the image of the woman.
Correct.
So it's only showing it on that layer. Oh, and Alexandria is asking about my shirt, and it, now I have to stand up so you can actually see it.
Oh no, you're cut off your head.
And my head is gone. But it is from the social department. I believe they are still around. They have a lot of really cool designer nerd shirts. It was made by designer nerds. They actually have one that says Design Nerd on it, which I also have.
I don't doubt that.
I love fun t-shirts. All right. So I have my woman in my Facebook frame. I do want to add a little bit of the brand as well. So I'm going to put the full logo name in there because I want to use the icon for my avatar image. And I'm liking how this image is starting to look.
That's, yeah, you did a great job on that.
So I'd rather use this image, I think, than this branded one up here. We can always use this branded one for something else. It's not always a waste. So I'm hitting Command V. Oh. I am copying Command C from Illustrator, pasting Command V. I do want to keep it a smart object, so I keep all of that vectory goodness. I'm holding Shift again. And I'm going to turn it on its side. Anytime you're turning something on its side, make sure the baseline is always facing into your frame. So if you have left and right, I always get my lefts and rights mixed up.
Left.
We talked about this a little
right.
yesterday. But you want to make sure your baseline of your text, the bottom of your text, is always facing inward.
Yes.
Because I want to put it on the right-hand side of my image, because the avatar is going to be on the left, I want to make sure the bottom, I point to my screen like people can see that. It's facing her.
Now, why is that? Why do you want that?
Well, it's something that I learned in school.
Okay.
And you don't question the judgment.
Sure you do. I'm questioning it right now.
Yes, it's always good to question, actually. To me, it makes it a little more readable, and I think it was for book spines and for packaging. I always think about it as I don't have a box or a package here. So if my hand is a box, you want to make sure all the baselines face backwards in that scenario so that when the box is laying on a shelf, you can still read the logo on it, which we'll get to a little bit later when we start doing packaging, if we get that far today. But when you have it upright, people can turn to look at it, and it just feels more grounded in the center. When you're looking at layout and hierarchy of fine art pieces, you want to move the eye around the page, but you want to keep it inside unless there's a specific conceptual reason that you have them looking off the page. So it just draws your eye back in and it grounds it to the center.
Okay. Great job.
That would be my rationale for it.
You answered my
I might have totally
challenge.
made that up. I don't know.
No, good. If you did, that was awesome. You met the challenge.
I also think with this, I'm going to hang the logo off a little bit. In the event that she picks this vertical business card here, I'm breaking it off the top, the bottom, and because we're going to be in Facebook, we have that, contextual brand element within that page as well. I did a talk a while ago for responsive branding, and we talked a lot about no man's land versus a controlled environment. If you're putting your brand into a controlled environment, like your own personal Facebook page, you can take more liberties with that brand. You can push things off the edge, make things a little bit less readable if it is from, just the brand perspective and you're not actually trying to communicate something.
Mm-hmm.
You can play with it a little bit more. If you're making things like a web banner or a postcard that's going to be sitting on a table and you don't have, it is no man's land, you don't know what other ads you're going to be next to. You don't know if your ad of a web banner is going to be listed on a really horrific news article, something bad that happened in the world. So you need to be able to speak to your brand and showcase your brand immediately without any questioning. If it's in that controlled environment, take some more liberties with it. Play with it a little bit more.
I'm convinced.
So I just hit Command T to transform. I'm going to flip it over the other way. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Bring that over. I'm going to grab those two layers, make sure they're centered using my Align tool. We look pretty good. So I like that for the cover photo. That way we can use the icon for the second one. I'm going to rename this artboard 2. Get my move tool back. I'm gonna hit save on this guy, and I'm going to save it out as a JPEG. So export as. You could probably also do the export for web. I'm gonna pull a JPEG on those. Just double check my image size and my canvas size. Export all into that same folder. And we're good to go on that one.
And that was your Facebook cover image.
That was my Facebook cover image. Because I already have this file, and because now that we have artboards with it, I'm just going to use the same file to put all my Facebook assets in so that they stay together. Helps me be a little more organized when my assets are all together. And now that we have artboards, we can do that.
I'm hearing and detecting that you're a fan of artboards.
I'm a huge fan of artboards. So we're gonna use the avatar, if I can spell. I'm gonna delete all these layers because I don't want them. Now if I click on the darker gray artboard layer, or I can click on my artboard tool, it'll give me the dimensions of this artboard so that I can crop the canvas on it. So I'm gonna pull it over. I am going to do a 1200 by 1200 on this guy for my avatar. It is pretty big, but I also like to have a 1200 by 1200, so if I use it on Instagram, I can repurpose that image. Always save something out big enough that you can repurpose it if you need to, but not so big that it's taking up a ton of space.
Yeah, last time I checked, Instagram wanted 1080 on the longest dimension, so that fits. That
Yeah.
not only it's big enough, but it's like you said, enough that if you want to repurpose it for something else, you have enough room.
Absolutely. I'm going to delete some of my excess layers so I don't have all of that junking up. I'm going to use that honey color and just the icon. Again, because we're in the controlled environment, we can use only the icon. See, that shifting is still getting me. We were talking yesterday about how long it takes to adapt.
You might want to go set that preference back again.
No, I will learn. I
You
will
will learn.
adapt.
You will adapt.
So, one thing that I do like about Photoshop, if I have two layers highlighted and you align them, it'll align them to one another. If you only have one layer highlighted and you hit the align tool, it'll automatically will align it to the artboard frame.
Good tip.
In Illustrator, you have the option of setting what you want. So if I click this element here and I drop down the align to selection, you can either do selection, so it aligns the two things that you have selected, or you can align to artboard. Same capability, just different way to go about it in Illustrator. And I believe that was also a recent tool of the align to artboard in Illustrator. Or I just found it. Could be.
It's a recent update, yes.
Okay.
Not too long ago.
You have all the insider information. So I have my Facebook avatar, so I'm going to export that out. I have all these guys. My last one is a ping, so I just held one, held shift, grab them all, JPEG format, export all, say open.
Okay, so this question will come up, I'm sure, but or someone's at least thinking it. Why JPEG, not PNG? Why PNG, not JPEG? Why any format over another one?
So typically, if I need something with a transparent background, I'll use a PNG. If you're not using a transparent background, use a JPEG. You can compress it with lower size for higher quality, and if you don't have a transparent background, there's not really any reason. Do you have a preference on the way that you approach it?
Your explanation was absolutely 100% correct. The only problem I find is, and it's mainly with Facebook in particular, is Facebook recompresses the heck, I was going to say a different word, the heck out of your images. And sometimes your image will look better as a PNG with that extra compression that they add on top of it than a JPEG. It just depends on the image. So that's a Facebook thing more than any other platform. Instagram, you're either way, you're fine. But for Facebook, because of the amount of compression they put on images that you upload, you might want to experiment with either format to see which way your image looks best.
Yeah, and it'll also make a difference how many colors you have in it as well. The more colors that you have, the compression quality, it's going to get more bitmapped because it's trying to retain those colors. But you can in Photoshop, when you export out some of those things, when you save for interactive, you can select how many colors that's pulling in, correct? So it's a good way to at least have a little control over it, and then when it compresses it, it's not quite as bad. So right now, I have an Instagram page, and I am just editing out a few things. It helps to frame it for clients when you just do a quick edit to put their brand into something that already exists. So I'm just pulling Helvetica. I am just going to make it this color. This way, when I put it into a presentation, it just looks a little more real. Which, if it only takes you a few minutes to do, it's totally worth it. It helps conceptualize everything.
I love attention to detail. Awesome. All right, we're about 10 minutes away from portfolio reviews. If you want your portfolio to have a shot at being reviewed today, submit your link based on the chat, the area in the chat for it.
Can't believe it's already getting to that time.
It's already getting to that time, I know. That's what happens when you're hard at work.
I know. Well, we won't get to packaging today, but you can always check back on embrecreative.com to see the final product.
I'm anxious to
Shameless
see which one.
plug.
I'm anxious to see which one she picks.
At least this way, the packaging will still be a surprise to her.
Yes. You think she's watching?
Probably.
Probably.
Okay.
Hi, Andrea.
So, just bringing in some of those things. Going to export this as a JPEG because I don't need the transparency. Going into my files. Digital.
Alexandra loves the coral.
Thank you. Can't go wrong with the color of the year.
Yep,
Thank you,
that's
Pantone.
exactly what she said.
Yep.
Pantone color of the year.
There's a reason it's the color of the year. So I'm not going to save that because I'm not going to need it. I am going to plug it into my presentation. So I'm going to get my pages. Give me a new page. And I'll organize these out later so that I can show her. This is going to be for digital. I'm going to pull the Instagram in there. Okay. So now I have it in there. I'm going to place it on a separate layer so that I can lock it because I like to lock using layers versus locking it on the page itself. I'm going to put a little more gray in here. And I'm going to put it on my same locked layer. Now I can start building out what this is going to look like using my image. I'm going to get myself an ellipse circle shape, go back down. I'm going to bring this art layer on top of the other. And I am going to make a circle that goes on top of this circle. Now you can do some of this stuff in Photoshop, but I like to do it in InDesign. Now that I have this circle, I'm gonna outline it just so you can see where that circle is.
And you didn't say why.
I will show you.
I like to do it in InDesign because...
So now I can grab this icon, drag it into this circle. It is much too big. I made it massive. But it crops directly into that shape for me, and I don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
So now that I have that frame, I'm gonna take that away. See, and now I can tell that I probably need to make that smaller in my square for my avatars because it was cropping too much. But I can just offset that by highlighting the frame of the circle, getting my eyedropper, picking up a little bit of that yellow color.
There you go.
Just for the mock-up. So now I already have that in there. Because I already have that shape, I can hold Option, pull it down, holding Shift and Option now, resizing it. Oh, so for InDesign, I'm gonna hold Shift, Option, and Command. Command is going to resize the outside frame with the image that's inside of it, so you can take it down together.
Shift is going to keep it proportional.
Proportional, and then what about Option?
Option's going to do it from the center.
Yes, sir. So I get all 3 fingers out using my thumb on my trackpad and pulling it in. So now that I have that one, we're just gonna pretend like this is my file that I'm just gonna build all of these in. Nope. Just gonna take that down in size, but I already have that one. So we're gonna pretend like this is my Instagram board, but I'm just gonna leave it in here for now.
Alexandra's asking, can you mock the icon in coral? She
We could.
loves the coral.
Well, we're gonna be putting the avatar in the honey color on top of the coral for the Facebook, and I don't want it to blend in together, but I do love that coral. So I'm gonna go back into my logos. Yesterday we went in and extended out these icons just a little bit. And I did that because now that we have a variety of ways to use them, I'm gonna place it in. See, still holding shift. Nope, that is the same icon that I had before. Now I can place it in, delete this other one. I'm gonna rename this, and this will be for the Insta. And these are gonna be highlight. We'll say highlight 2.
Ah, she said they clarified the avatar on coral.
Open this guy. I'm gonna save those out. Back to my InDesign file. So now that maybe we have apothecary in one, we can do the second one and the different icon. I did update my images. I probably could have also just updated my link and it would have shifted that for me too, or you can drop and place that in there. But now you can start to see that we're thinking about what are those highlight icons? What is the avatar? How does this brand start to extend into, you know, the digital world?
Yeah.
And how do you get that brand across? I do want to, I love the suggestion of changing the color behind some of these for the different highlights. So I would like to do that. So I'm going back to my Photoshop file, into my colors, wherever those went. I'm gonna grab this coral for one.
Now, was the coral something you chose on purpose, or did that just happen to be from the color palette, from the images that you had put on Pinterest?
Yeah, it was pulled from some of these
okay.
grapefruits and, you know, these beautiful reddish colors that are in here. Also with products, I like to make sure that I span most of the color palette, or at least get a couple of cools and a couple of warms so you have those in your toolkit to use later. I think I'm also gonna do this green color. So maybe I'll do this one for this other highlight. Toss those in there. Drop that layer down, save my file. Export it as. I already have my file set up, so I just say okay. And now that I already have these, I saved them as the same file name. So if I go to my links, you again can see that I've updated them. So now if we just hit that update, it'll shift out the color. Obviously, both of these images are linked. Ideally, I would have them as separate colors, so that way you have one for the highlights and you have one for that avatar icon, but you can see how that starts to lay out. I do a very similar thing, and we only have 1 minute before the portfolios, but I set up a very similar thing when I am building an Instagram recommendation. So if I'm setting up templates for people, I had her go through and think about 5 different buckets that she wants to start posting from. Usually with clients, it can be really hard for them to determine what they want to post on social media. I usually tell them—
And that's, especially Instagram, that's a tough one.
Yeah, because the expectation for how much content you're putting it out, you need to create things. You're also running your business. You're also developing new products. It's a lot to take on. I usually tell clients to think of 5 different buckets of information. 80% of those should not be product-based. So you have 1 bucket for products. You have 1 bucket that you want to do brand elements. So you can post this image with the colored background. You could post this image of this woman with the logo in it. Those would be considered branded images. And the other 3 are other things that align with your brand that you want to put out into the world. This could be recipes for her, so how to make your own body butters, things like that. You could do educational farming practices. For example, there is starting to become a shortage of lavender because of the essential oils and pulling lavender into everything. So sustainable farming practices are really important for lavender. So she could talk more about farming industries and having sustainable products, packaging, interesting things that are happening in the industry. And then maybe she talks a little bit about her.
I love
Gives you a plan. That way, if you're doing a 5-day posting schedule or one a week for a month, you know that the first week of the month is a branded quote or something inspirational. The second week of the month, it'll be, farming practices or education.
I love the 5-bucket
Gives
idea.
a plan.
Definitely.
All right.
All right,
Portfolio
so
review?
it is time for us to take a quick break for our portfolio review segment. Stay tuned.
Cold up here.
Should probably put the visor down.
We're going in.
We're going to leave it up.
We need to be safe and protected
All right.
for all these amazing portfolios we're about to be blasted away with.
I didn't get the prescription visor, so I'm going to put the glasses back.
It's okay, you probably can't hear anything I'm saying anyways with the visor down. Are you about to tell me you're my father?
Possibly. All right.
On with the reviews.
Okay, that was fun. Not really, but that was fun. Okay, so portfolio review time. Mm-hmm. Are you ready for our first portfolio review from Tristan,
Let's see it.
who was in the chat? Just noticed the message a few seconds ago.
Hey, Tristan. All right, some really interesting things here. Some great work. There's a lot of layering.
Where do we go?
There's
so
a lot of
work, there's mood
collage.
boards, appreciations, and insights. So let's stick to the work. All right, just start with the first one. And I'm going to let you start the discussion.
Okay.
And I'll chime in if I just see anything that steps out to me.
Sounds great. So I do want to make some comments
Go
on
ahead.
first impressions as well. It's really important, especially with the shortened attention spans of people. People are very used to the internet and the proclivity of that, and grabbing somebody's attention initially is really great. So if you go back to the main profile with the image. First of all, it's already a great breadth of what you're doing. I can see each project. I can see that, maybe some are magazines, some of them are either landing pages or websites. You have a wide variety of things, but a definite style. So you're using some darks with some bright colors to contrast. You're doing a lot of layering and a lot of that composite work, which is really, really cool. But you have your About Me filled out. You seem to be really active on Behance, so that adds a lot of credibility. It looks like you're taking the time to fill out a lot of the information on the projects and your location and all that good stuff, which is awesome. So going into a project, this looks to be a website. So if you're scrolling down,
UI web design.
UI web design. So showing us exactly what it is, who it's for. I'm assuming this is a full, nope, this is just screens, I'm assuming from this website. So I guess that would be a little chunk of feedback. I can't quite tell if this is a full scrolling website or if
actually,
they're
it looks like
different
they're breaking
elements.
it down by category. So UI interactions is the next category, so you get to see.
I think the challenge here is that the typeface that Behance has is that sans serif, or if you're putting that into the layout. So it's starting to blend together, and it looks like it could be part of the whole identity. So it would be nice if you could pull out those descriptions in some way so that I can tell that we're moving into different sections, because I'm not sure if this is the full layout
Yeah,
or
'cause
if it's separate
I'm
elements
starting to
within.
get, I'm starting to get the idea now. Number 1, UI Web Design 2019. Number 2, main page. Then it goes down to number 3.
So although it
UI,
looks
yeah.
really beautiful and it's visually striking, if we had to take a second to figure that out, it's kind of a challenge.
Agreed.
But otherwise, really beautiful work.
I love the UI interactions.
I love that you're showing the animations here. It gives some interest and it puts that whole, idea into perspective. Especially if this is a live project, you can link to it and show those animations as well.
Very nice design as well.
Yeah, really beautiful work. Yeah, and Steve is mentioning, Behance does have limitations that are not at the fault of the artist, which is absolutely true. It's just some of these images where it has the 06 in it, those are within the image, and it can be a little bit of a challenge. So just making sure that even if it's a website or something, if you frame it within a laptop and it has a color background on it, using something to just visually differentiate those sections is just always nice and helpful. But I totally agree with you. There are limitations as well.
Nicely done.
Beautiful work.
All right, I'm going to look at one more that stood out for me when we went back to the main page.
Yeah.
This one, for whatever reason, is jumping out at me. Let's see what it is. I'm not sure if that's a loading issue. Yeah. It's just
Yeah, I think we might
taking a minute to load.
Be on a slow load. Everybody's at work on the Wi-Fi today.
Everyone's looking at their portfolio.
So what are your thoughts on this piece?
I'm a photographer, so I'm drawn to the imagery. So that's what jumped out at me. I love the mood of the images. Black and white is not a style I normally gravitate to, but you're doing a great job with black and white.
I also really like how you're pulling in some of those bright colors to create some texture in those dark, moody images. You're using that bright yellow and that extended
And I
kind of
think
brutalist type
that's what drew
face,
me
which
in.
is
Yeah.
cool. And it gives it something a little more having that bright color in there, because typically a bright yellow like that is, cheery and happy, but then you're pairing them with these darker images, so it makes that really cool texture.
And the size of the type here is doing you a disservice because I'm zoomed all the way in and I can barely see it. So that would be my only critique here, is just maybe a bigger point size. I know maybe for the printed piece it was fine, but since this window is so small and when I click on this to zoom in, I have to really squint to read it.
And even, potentially, it looks like this is a fashion lookbook of sorts. You could always frame them into an actual mock-up as well, so that somebody's not trying to read it, thinking that it's just a color and something that they should be reading. But he's pretty clearly defining that, this was a book of sorts, and just
Well, like I
kind of
said,
showcasing
the actual
layouts
piece
and
was probably
things.
fine.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
just represented here on Behance, it's tough to read.
But
And maybe it's not meant to be read.
beautiful
Maybe it is just
I
a
want you to
mock-up.
read it.
Right. Don't read it. That's why I made it small. Yeah, see, this stuff
Interesting
is kind of
photo.
interesting and cool.
Very nice work.
Yep. All right. Is there another one you want to look at here?
Yeah, let's check out another, or do you want to go to
Yeah,
another
no,
portfolio?
well,
How many are we going
have-
through?
We have time to get to the other one. Let's do
Okay.
one more here.
Yeah,
Which
I want to
one?
look at the upper right
This one?
hand. Yeah. So first off, I love that you're making this into a GIF, or GIF for the other people that say it the peanut butter way.
For the other people.
You're always in one of two groups. You're either the GIF people or the GIF people.
Okay.
But I like the motion and how you're showing these different layouts of images. They're really cool, some really cool masking. And I like that it's also on the dark background so that you're only seeing the colored elements that are coming through that. So it really draws your attention and frames that nicely using the white black space, the black white space.
Yep.
So this one, it looks like you are breaking down the case study elements and showing how you built that brand, talking a little bit more about the project, which is nice.
I think this is what drew us in, the cover image.
Yeah. And this is a great example of how you are bringing in those elements to talk about the project and, you know, what it's about and how you approached some of these things. But I can clearly see that there are different sections in it as well.
Very nice.
Some really cool work. The layering and the multiple colors is nice.
I don't have anything to say. You're doing great. You're on your way. Like, impressive.
And I really love that you're breaking down, you know, that poster build and all the layering on it too. This one's really easy to see which piece is what you're actually building and the approach to it.
Yep. Very creative.
Good work.
All right.
Good job, Tristan.
Go to our next one, which is Nick Sanchez. Very clean. And what do you want to say about this?
Hey, Nick. Okay. So first of all, just a lot of different pieces, which is great. You're showing some diversity, pattern design, garment design, package design, you know, print design. So a whole lot of different things in here, which is awesome. A wide range. Let's dive in to see some of these.
Which one do you want to start with?
You pick, Terry. Choose your own adventure.
Where do I want to go first? I want to go. This is interesting.
Another thing that I also
Game of Thrones.
feel like is pretty effective in the way that you're setting up your thumbnails is you are giving context to what the element's going to be, whether it is, you know, apparel design or package design. So that's nice too, because you're showing that frame of reference.
Nice package design for the Game of Thrones sword. Showing us who uses it.
Fantastic.
Very nice.
And he has his Daenerys shirt on,
Yes.
so that's great.
No, we don't watch the show at all. Not at all.
Not at all. But showing multiple views of it. I would love to see some more detail shots, I think, in that packaging, because you're showing us a lot of mock-ups to it, which is really cool. But I think you could fill out the case study or just the project page a little more of showing some details of maybe the way that you laid out some of the information on the bottom, or if you go back to the sword that we were just on with the packaging, I would love to see that pattern close up. And unless I'm mistaken, did you show it close
Yeah,
up?
it's as close as I can get right here.
Okay. But it'd be really great if you did some detail shots where it was just that pattern blown up, or, you know, a corner view of something, just to bring in some pacing to that storytelling, but then also showing some of those details. I mean, you spent all this time illustrating out icons. I would assume that it'd be great to see them.
Yeah, I agree that because that is a very nice pattern. I'm just going through to make sure I didn't miss it. Nope, it's not there. All right, you get brownie points for Game of Thrones content.
I want to see this hat.
This one?
Yeah.
Holy ship.
Holy ship. That's a pretty cool hat. I love the colors that you're using, especially on that black, that tone on tone. Just, this is a great version of what I was talking about, having those lights and darks within patterns and just having them to use. Again, with this one, similar feedback as the other. I would love to just see either those icons broken down so that you can see all of those illustrations one at a time. Looks like there's a lot of great detail in there in the ship and the pineapples. I'd love to see it a little bit closer.
Yeah,
There's some really cool line work in there.
awesome. And I'd love to know if you mock this up like in Dimension, or did you actually have this printed? Like, I'd love to know, is this a mock-up or the actual product? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. And if you do have, I would venture to say that they're probably mock-ups because of the simple format they are. If you actually have them printed, put them on a friend, go out, take some
Good
photos.
point.
Especially if you have a friend that has a boat, it'd be awesome to see somebody kind of hanging it off the side like they're relaxing on the boat and put that in some context, or with a drink or whatever it is. So
Absolutely. All right. Now I want to look at more swords, but
let's look at some candy. Is that candy?
this Fruit Ninja looks like candy.
Yeah. Nice. So it looks like the top of a bag. So one of those fold cards that goes on the top of whatever Fruit Ninjas are.
Well, Fruit Ninja was
a Fruit Catan.
It was a game, so I didn't know they made the actual candy.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's an old school iPhone game.
It's a perfect way to extend that marketing into a physical product, stay top of mind, and be something that somebody actually likes. So when you're thinking about, holistic branding, what partnerships can you make?
Oh, this looks like it's the packaging for a sword, so not the actual, not candy.
So an actual sword.
So
Is
an
the
actual
sword
sword.
edible? Is it a candy sword? Is it made out of fruit?
It's almost lunchtime, so you might be able to tell.
Yeah, well, and you're on Atlanta time
Yeah.
too, so it's already, 2
I
p.m. for
know,
you?
right? So, you suckers in with the candy look to this, and now we're like, we want,
Somebody send a fruit sword,
we want
please.
some Fruit Ninja candy now. Good job. All right, what do you want to look at next?
Yeah. Ooh. Let's look at a print piece. Business cards, perfect.
Those cards, okay.
These are super cool. Nice. So it looks like we have a really intricate pattern here, which is really interesting. Sorry, the screen is so far away.
Yeah, it's, I'm just looking at the name here, Christian Vindigus, massage therapist, and a phone number. Cool.
Yeah, so really nice, simple icon for massage therapy practice. Really interesting patterning on the back. Again, it was, like what we were doing with the Bombini patterns. I love that you took that main icon, extended it out into a secondary graphic, and then further extended it into a pattern that you can use on the back of the card. Are there any other images on here?
That was it.
Just the one? So similar feedback here. You're doing some really cool patterning and illustration work. Show more of it. It's really, really cool. So show people the goods.
Definitely.
Some more hats.
More hats.
I love hats. Think we could fit one of those underneath our helmets?
Probably not.
Is that dangerous? Is that recommended
might
to go
get
into
stuck
space?
at that point. Yeah. It's got watermelon pillows.
Some pretty cool pattern design.
Ice cream pattern.
Nice. So summer patterns. Even with these, if it was either a personal project or client work, you could always add a few additional patterns to those to continue to fill out some additional, portfolio pieces on there, especially if you have an extra night or an extra day. Just continuing on the summer pack would be awesome to see. Put it on a hat. Koozies.
Koozies.
Love to see some watermelon koozies.
Solid work. Let's
Yeah,
see what this
some
one
good
is.
stuff.
Email marketing.
Nice. Showing some flexibility and diversity in your portfolio as well. So ability to do some digital.
The only thing I would say here, and this is just I know these are mocked up on a screen so we can see them on a computer, but same thing, getting back to you'd like to be able to zoom in and see more of this. So I would just say give us another version that we can actually look at this more closely.
Or I'd also recommend, if you're mocking things up like this, putting them on either a very simplified version of an email window or an iPad. It's great to have it in a device because it gives you context of what it is, but on a desktop computer screen, it's just so far away. Your actual art is only taking up, again, I don't math, but maybe 10% of this page. I'm just gonna throw out random Random
I'm going to
percentages.
say more like closer to 25%, but good.
That's not 25%. That's
If you look at the
25%
whole
is
monitor,
1/4. Oh, of the
right,
monitor.
yeah, the monitor is about
Talking about
24%.
the whole image.
Okay. 10%.
10%, 5%. Just start throwing out numbers.
The guest is always right.
It's a small percentage of the screen for what it is. So, like Steve is mentioning, less desk, more screen.
Yeah.
Less numbers.
Right, because
More descriptive words.
Again, it's a beautiful, area, but do we really need to see all of this versus your design? Mm-hmm. So your design is almost getting lost in the environment because in a beautiful environment. Don't get me wrong.
The
But
only
I want to see
time
more of your design.
The only time I would challenge something like that to see the full desk or make a case for the full desk is if you actually have some of those buck knives and they are
And they're sitting on the
the
desk.
environment is, integrated into it. So you have
Agreed.
the knife and maybe you have, a really cool leather pouch or a bow and arrow. It's actually this hunter's or this person who is using these tools. Maybe it's outside in a forest and you have the laptop with Wi-Fi magically.
All
But
right.
then you can make a case for having the desk in it.
So great work. And again, this is Nick Sanchez, and earlier we were looking at Tristan. Great work from both of you. Matter of fact, I'm going to look at one more of yours because we got like 5 minutes left, I think. Yeah, like 5 minutes left. And this is Psych Location.
It's really cool.
All right. Any parting words of advice for both of these reviews?
No, the only thing that I would say is that, think of portfolios as always an evolving process. You can always go in, make updates, make edits, extend out projects that might not have had a full extended out system to them to build them up, showcase your capabilities. It's always hard as designers to figure out what our own personal identity is and what we want it to be, but just continuing to push and make it look better and great and only showing things that you're really, really proud of versus showing a bunch of things that half of them you're proud of and half of them, you feel like you're okay, but you put them on there just to have more things.
And I was always told, and I kind of subscribe to the theory of you're only as strong as your weakest element, your weakest picture, your weakest whatever it is in there. So I would rather see 5 phenomenal pieces of work than 10 just okay ones.
Absolutely.
So
And
less is more. Let's show your best, not necessarily just because you're passionate about that particular project or you put a lot of time into it. But if it's not as good as the other ones in your portfolio or better than, then you have to question why is it in there.
Absolutely. And like we mentioned before, if you pare some of those down, go in and extend out those case studies. So, show details of some of the projects, show them mocked up in a different environment or a detailed shot of them and fill them out further versus having a bunch on there that,
Yeah, that are okay, and it shows that you're working with clients and all that. But if it's your because again, we're also talking about the difference between perhaps, and this is where I get kind of like sidetracked when we talk about Behance versus your Behance portfolio. So Behance, work in progress, things you're working on, projects, and it could be a bunch of things you're doing. But when you're actually going to call it your portfolio, then that should be limited down to just your best work.
Absolutely. And even if you're showing progress shots of those, you can have a section where you have progress shots, and then you can go into the final work if you're trying to tell that whole story. And a great comment from Eric asking the community to go through the portfolio, rate projects so that he can remove some. They can remove some.
Eric, I appreciate your sentiment and your effort, but I don't know that I would open it up for the whole world to do that because not everyone is a designer. Not everyone has taste. Not everyone has a good judgment on what makes a good portfolio piece or not. So in that case, I would do what we're doing today. Get with someone who's actually a designer who you look up to or a photographer you look up to and have them review your portfolio and make recommendations as opposed to just saying, hey, what do you guys like? And open it up to the whole world because the whole world isn't good. Like the whole world doesn't make good choices.
That's true.
You're gonna have 10 people telling you to take this piece out. You're gonna have 10 people telling you it's your best piece. So
alternately look at your target audience too.
Yeah.
You can always ask advice from designers, but if you look at your goals for what your career is. Are you trying to do freelance and you're trying to pull in clients? Are you trying to get an agency job? Are you trying to do more packaging? Do you want to do more web?
Right.
Always showcase more of what you want to be doing so that people will see that and hire you for that thing.
And know that's what you're focused on and that's what you're good at. So we got like 20 seconds left. What do we want to say in 20 seconds?
If you don't want to be doing PowerPoint templates and presentations, don't put them in your portfolio because you'll get hired to do that.
All right, and with that said, Mary, you have been a blast to work with, one of my favorite streamers that I've had the honor of hosting.
It was great working with you as well, and thanks for
So,
coming all the way from Atlanta for
Thank
this.
you. Embr
I
Creative,
appreciate it.
everybody. Go check it out.
Bye, guys.
everybody.